Hello and welcome to the Short Gun Sportsman, a podcast about handgun hunting brought to you by Handgun Hunters International. My name is Ryan Hoover and I'm your host. I believe handgun hunting is the most rewarding way to hunt, and it's something I want to share with as many people as I can. If you are at all interested in getting your own game meat, I want to challenge you to a way of hunting that is good for both your spirit and your body, so you can become the confident, self-reliant person you were meant to be. Okay, everybody, another good one today. We're continuing our series about getting into handgun hunting. Today, we're going to be talking about field gear, and that's all the stuff that you take into the field with you, not including your gun, ammo, or optic. First, Heath, Tyler, and I are going to be talking about just some of the things that we like to use in the field, how we use them, what kinds of things we feel like we need. And then in the second part of the podcast, I'm going to be talking to Brian Thurber of Trifecta Handgun. Brian has invented a handgun rest for the field that attaches to a bipod, tripod, or monopod, and he is a great HHI member and doing really good work trying to have some good rests for us handgun hunters in the field. So I hope you enjoy, but before we get into the episode, I want to talk about the Six Gunner, which is HHI's bi-monthly digital magazine. The Six Gunner is free to the public, and you can subscribe to it by going to subscribepage.com/the Six Gunner. Now, HHI members are the only people who are allowed to write for the Six Gunner, so every issue is full of stories and information, tips and tricks and reviews by people who have actually done what we do in the field. I know it's a great resource to everybody, and it is a good way to give examples of handgun hunting to the general hunting public. So please go to subscribepage.com/the Six Gunner and subscribe for free today. Okay, Heath, here we are again. We have covered why we handgun hunt and some myths. We've covered how to choose your gun and ammunition. We've covered optics, which was a big one and a lot of people really enjoyed. So today we're back to discuss field gear. And so this is the way that I kind of characterize this is the gear that we bring into the field that is not our handgun, ammo, or optic, and is not the clothes that we wear. And so this is going to be things that the accessories that we need that make it better for us to hunt.
Yeah, great.
So the one that I want to start with that I have been hunting with for years now, even though I didn't when I was younger, and I assume you didn't because most people didn't, is hearing protection.
Oh yeah, we didn't even use it for shooting growing up.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Terrible.
It is so terrible. But, when we were growing up, we didn't have the good electronic noise canceling hearing protection that we have today.
That's true. Yeah. I don't even know what it looked like because I didn't have any.
That's right. I remember, here's a funny story actually. When this stuff first started becoming a thing, the Walker's Game Ear and all that, my buddy and I bought some cheap hearing protection that was supposed to be noise canceling to test it out. Well, it definitely did the amplification side, but it didn't cut off. And so basically we shot a 12 gauge amplified. That was fun. But
what? Huh?
Yeah, exactly right. Things have come a long way since then.
Yeah.
And so for those who don't know that the noise canceling basically is a microphone that amplifies sound until that sound reaches a certain decibel threshold, and then it cuts off, and it does it fast enough to be able to prevent that sound from reaching your ear and damaging your hearing. Some of the Walker's Game Ear, Walker's brand, Peltor. I've been using the Howard Late Impact Pro Sport, I think it's called, earmuffs, and those are over the ear noise canceling hearing protection, and also there are in-ear noise canceling hearing protection. I prefer the over the ear. What experience do you have?
I've tried a mixture of both, and I think obviously the over the ear is a lot more comfortable to use because it's not sitting there digging into your ear for hours on end.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, I haven't gone this route yet, but from what I've heard from some other friends and just other people that are handgun hunters or hunters in general, is the custom molded in-ear hearing protection is really the way to go if you want to use the in-ear stuff. It's expensive. It's a lot more expensive, but like I've told you before, that in-ear headphones or anything like that, if I wear them for too long, it just makes the inside of my ears itch. Not everybody's that way, but the headphones also double as ear warmers when I'm hunting. So that's a good thing for me.
Yeah. So this year I tried a variation of things. One that I tried it's made by Otis.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Ear Shield. And they have, it's like a foam that it doesn't go in your ear, but it's very small, but it just goes barely over the hole of your ear.
Interesting.
And they call sound reduction chambers.
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately, the first time I carried them into the field, I was on my way in, and apparently I had them just around my neck,
Mm-hmm.
and they got snagged on something. So
Oh,
I never
man.
actually got to use them,
Man.
which is kind of a shame because they got a $20-some-odd price tag, which is not a lot.
Right. You wouldn't leave $20 bill in the woods.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. One of the biggest benefits of that kind of hearing protection that I've found is hunting with a buddy, that the amplification enables you to whisper and communicate with each other easier without, obviously making too much noise.
Absolutely.
And I found that. And also, for those of us that grew up not hunting with hearing protection or not shooting with hearing protection, we probably have some hearing damage, and the microphones, the amplification side of it, have definitely helped me in the woods before as far as hearing what's going on.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
So I never hunt without them, and I never shoot without them, and nobody should ever shoot without hearing protection. Speaking from somebody who has ruined his ears over years of guns and drums. Yeah, please protect your ears. And hearing protection that with the noise reduction and amplification allows you to use them effectively in the field, unlike when we were kids.
Yeah, especially with handguns. My goodness, some of these things will break.
Yep.
It will make your ears bleed.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. So what are some other essential pieces of kit that you like to bring into the field with you?
Probably one of the ones that I found the most beneficial is I keep a kind of a field dressing kit, if you will. A good sharp knife, a bone saw, maybe a couple knives, honestly, sometimes, just, depending on what I got going.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll usually keep some trash bags and latex gloves, not because I'm afraid of anything, just because sometimes you wind up somewhere where there's not any water to rinse your hands off.
Right.
And, usually a rope, but I have a backpack, so I'm intending on carrying that meat out instead of dragging the whole animal.
Right. The difference between, and I'm glad you brought that up, because where I hunt, most of the time, you shoot a deer and then you're close enough to some sort of facility where you bring a vehicle to pick up the deer and take it to, a gambrel style hoist where you can gut it and skin it in the hanging position. So we don't carry field dress kits as much down here. It is done. It's just not as common. And you did also touch on something that I think is key to anybody's field kit, and that is a good sharp knife. All the rage right now is those the changeable blade knives.
Yep.
Have you used any of those?
I never have, honestly. I carry it's a Swiss made knife. Pause for editing.
I need to get the Jeopardy theme.
I can never think of the name of these things. So what I carry is it's called a Moore knife.
Oh yeah, a Finnish, right? Are they Finnish?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There you go. And so razor sharp, made in Sweden is what I'm looking at it now. It comes with a plastic case. Man, they're literally under $30.
Those are
so I keep one in every bag that I've got.
Okay. Those are the kind that have a more robust angle on their edge, right? And it's supposed to be able to hold an edge longer.
Yep.
That has always been one of the things, sharpening a knife in the field. Quality of knife obviously has a lot to do with that, but I this year started using some of those interchangeable blade knives, and it's been great. I don't know if it's been great just because I've been used to field dressing deer with a knife that's not as sharp as it should be.
Right. Absolutely.
But I've really liked it. I do find that I go through probably 2 or 3 blades, but it has been really nice to be able to use those. And the blades are cheap, and various companies are coming out with that kind of thing. I have one of those knives that you're talking about, the Finnish from Finland, it's complete. And I haven't had a chance to use it, mostly because when I moved my shop, it's in a box somewhere that I can't find.
Yeah. I just keep 4 or 5 of them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so dang affordable, and I just keep one in every pack, man.
Right.
They're just.
However, shout out to artisan tradesmen out there. If you can, you should make it a goal to get a true custom knife made, because you will find there is no comparison at all.
Yeah.
So moving on, one of the things that I have recently needed to use more, because when I first started, I was hunting with my revolver, which comes with an inbuilt ammo carrier, obviously. I've been hunting more with my single shot contender, and an ammo carrier has been a lot more needed in the field now. Sure. And especially one that you can get to your ammo quickly.
Yep.
Do you use something like that?
It's kind of funny you would ask that. This year I started carrying, one of those, it goes on the buttstock of your rifle.
Oh, yeah.
And I just slide the thing up on my arm and put rounds in it.
Oh, that's good. Are you familiar with the company W Gear?
I don't think so.
They make a claw bag, and they make a couple other things. Cody Weiser started it. He's an avid handgun hunter, and they make ammo carriers that are pretty cool. They even make like a 2-round. I used to sell them when I was in the business, but now because of field expediency, so when I hunt, I wear gloves usually.
Yep.
Mechanics has these super thin gloves that I found. They're terrible if you're shooting anything with a smooth grip, because the glove is such that it'll ride up on your hand when you shoot it. Yep. But the contender that has the rubber back of the grip, it works great. So they Velcro over the back of your wrist, and where they Velcro, there's like a little hole going through the meat of your thumb. And I've just been sticking around through there because it's handy. But I think probably a wrist carrier is added to my list. The old guys that used to hunt, or that still hunt with double guns in Africa or wherever, they used to carry a couple of rounds between their fingers of their offhand. And I'll do that too. But again, it's probably time for a wrist carrier. I really haven't found a need to carry extra ammunition that's easily accessible when I'm hunting with a revolver, though. I know there are people that do, especially if you're shooting like a 5-shot.
Yeah, that should be plenty, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be a great thing if somebody built something that was Velcro adjustable to put up on the arm, and maybe they do it. I'm just not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, really, if you just had something that held 3 or 4 or 5 rounds in there and was adjustable so that you could, because the thing that I've been using is really a little too tight, especially if you've got any layers of clothing on.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because they just are sewn together and elastic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
No, you should check out the W Gear stuff then, because they're Velcro and they work pretty well. There's another one that I can't think of that Ernie Bishop recommended to me that he uses too. Those and also those 2-round holders that the PRS guys use on their rifles.
Oh yeah,
that you can just put a little Velcro thing to. I tend to think that rifle caliber single shots would probably buck one of those off, but you could probably put a piece of Velcro or sew a piece of Velcro to your jacket or something, and they would stick just fine to that.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to one of my biggest needs in the field, and something that I have struggled with and am still working on finding out, is field rests. So using rests, I kind of divide it. You have bags, you have shooting sticks, and you have actual rests that support both the front of the gun and the butt.
Sure.
Obviously, they each have their advantages, and I would say, to me, the thing that I am searching for and just really want is a rest that supports the butt of my gun, but is also light enough to stalk with. I stalk with shooting sticks a lot, and I found, man, I would just love for a way to support my butt on those, not the butt of the grip, rather. Not my. I want some shooting sticks to support my butt. That would be nice. There's the next thing.
just the whole stand.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Now you're
it's a tree stand, Ryan. Come on.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, where have I been? Just something to be able to support that. That is, only ounces heavier than sticks. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That would be cool. The thing is, a lot of people, this is funny because so many times when I show a non-handgun hunter a specialty pistol, either one of my contenders or an XP or something like that, the first thing they do is pick it up, hold it at arm's length, and try and sight down it offhand.
Oh yeah.
Like they assume that that's the way to shoot it. And of course I'm always telling them, no, you definitely want to rest, bipod, something like that. And so in the field, if you're sitting in a blind or a stand, you usually have a bar or a ledge or something that you can rest off of. But in the field, it's either some sort of field expediency. A few six gunners back, the HHI magazine, the six gunner that we put out, Mark Hampton wrote an article about field rests where he went through some really good suggestions for what to use in the field, for everything from, resting on your backpack over a rock to finding a good tree limb to straight up tripods, etc. And it all depends on how you get set up, right? So for me, I'll tell you the things that I have used with some degree of success are a bipod with kind of one of those U-shaped rubber hooks or rubber rests rather up at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just straight up shooting sticks. Primos. Oh man, I can't think of the Primos makes a shooting stick that's collapsible that I really like. Although they are only for kind of kneeling or sitting positions, but they're so light and they're so great. Those are the things that I've been using the most. And they're not perfect, but they are great. Later in the episode, we're going to talk to Brian Thurber, who is doing good work on this front with the Trifecta Handgun rest that he runs, that company Trifecta Handgun. And it's a really well-made portable rest for the field for handguns. And we'll get into that in the second half of this episode. But what do you do? Because I know you sit on the ground a lot. What do you do for a rest?
Well, so disclaimer, there's some things you got to do to be able to do that to hunt this way. But what I do is I just try to find a place. Like that's one of when I'm searching for a place to set up on an area, that's one of the requirements that I have is that, okay, I can set here with a handgun. And then I usually I'll have, I just love these little bags. I forget what the name of them is, but they're made by Holland Shooters.
Oh yeah.
Supply, which I picked those up off of, I think I saw one of the guys from HHC, I think was where I actually found out about that.
Yeah, those are good.
Dave House, I think. Well, I saw an Instagram post of his or something. But yeah, so that's usually what I do. But in doing that, you have to. My experience has been that you have to check your zero, set up. Get at the range and get. Sit down on the bench, not on the bench, but sit down on the ground or something, and see how that affects your zero.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's one of the struggles with hunting with the butt not supported,
Absolutely. You brought up something that I think is super important, which is the one way to get a rest is to design your hunting around how you're going to rest your gun. Like you said, if you sit up at a choke point or game trail or something and you find a place that is convenient to rest your gun, that is absolutely a solution to that. Another great point you made is the practice it takes. We know, or we should know, that the bench is only good enough for sighting in your gun, testing ammunition, chronographing, that kind of thing. But when you're actually practicing for the range, you need to shoot from the positions that you're going to be shooting in the field from, and don't assume that your zero is going to be the same from one type of rest to another. It may be close enough, but you should definitely, trust but verify that. And yeah, excellent point. Also, I want to bring up another thing about bags. I love shooting revolvers from those little bags, just resting the butt on them.
Yep. Yeah, I've done that too. That's pretty handy.
It makes a good portable rest. That but there are some bags out there. I recently learned about this bag called the Cross Tack X bag. Not paid sponsor or anything like that, but it was from an HHI member because in the latest latest issue of the Six Gunner, the January 2023 episode, gosh dang it, the January 2023 issue, John Tasker, a fantastic HHI member, wrote a review about it. And if you go to that magazine and you look at the pictures, it is cool. It's configurable, to support the butt. It's configurable to lay your gun across the little V trough that goes down it. So there are options out there. Of course, it's a bigger bag, but it is light enough to be able to take into the field. So there's another option for you right there. And then again, as I said, we're going to get into the Trifecta handgun rest later in this episode. Moving forward into another thing that I have found key in the field are some sort of optic, binoculars, or my buddy uses a monocular. I much prefer binoculars. What do you use on that front?
I just carry a small set of binoculars. I have been intrigued to try a monocular. I think that would be really cool, but it definitely helps to have something so that you can just improve on your sight.
Yeah.
What's
And this is one of the things that I learned about binoculars, squirrel hunting is It's not necessarily about seeing something that's far away. It's bringing the detail closer for you to be able to assess and inspect. Is like if you're hunting in the woods, you may be using your binoculars to only look 50 yards away, but those binoculars can enable you to discern the difference between, is that deer hair or is that grass going to seed or whatever, is that a bushy tail in the tree, or is that just some piece of trash that blew up there? That kind of thing. I've found binoculars to be hugely helpful for that. Also, rangefinders are good for, it's better. I try to get good at estimating range, is like practice that. But I also usually carry a light light rangefinder in the field. I would love to combine the binocular rangefinder thing, but they're still pretty expensive for a combination. And my budget just hasn't allowed that yet, but that would be, I would think, the ultimate piece of equipment that fills that need is to have them in combo, because, range is pretty important to us handgun hunters, especially because it's incumbent upon us to set our limit and then not go past it. And if you're out there, you're without a rangefinder, you're much more likely to convince yourself that it's within your range, than if you can verify and say, definitely need to get closer before I take that shot.
I can't say enough about how important or how helpful it is to have some kind of way to verify for sure that is an animal, especially if you're using these amplified hearing protection devices.
Yeah, good point.
Your eyes can play tricks on you.
That is a really good point. And especially if you're like me and you're colorblind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
for sure.
Deer are pretty good at camo for people who can see color just fine. But when you're like me and you think that every brown and green are pretty much the same, then binoculars are definitely a help on that front.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can you think of any other piece of gear that you take into the field with you besides oatmeal cream pies?
Well, that was going to be what I was going to mention. I did not carry any oatmeal cream pies with me this year, and I think it had a direct impact on the amount of animals I actually took back to the house.
You're probably right.
So yeah, and I think next year that's definitely going to be part of my kit.
Yeah, I don't care if you're allergic to oats or if you're on a diet. Oatmeal cream pies are one of the key pieces of kit that you need to be taking into the field with you. They just make you a better hunter.
You're probably not going to need your field rest if you don't carry the oatmeal cream pies. Right, exactly right. And you may even be able to run down a deer on your own 2 feet if you got a couple of cream pies in your belly. Yep.
This is all, I didn't know any of this until I learned it from Roy Yeager. And I've just been stunned how it's improved my success rate in the field.
You're definitely going to be running if you've got a couple in your belly. I don't know.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it.
I don't know what you're going to be running after, but you're
Mm.
definitely going to be running.
You're not going to be running after. You're going to be running toward
Yeah.
something. Oh man, that's great. The okay, so I think pretty much that covers it as far as the stuff that I bring into the field. I usually, if I'm hunting from a stand or a blind, then I'll bring a cup of coffee. I think that's pretty much all I bring. You?
Oh yeah, definitely going to have some snacks in my bag,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm going to eat them after the first hour of being there, and I'll be hungry for the rest of the day.
First hour, you're doing better than most. Okay, well, coming up next is my interview with Brian Thurber of Trifecta Handgun. Brian and I are going to talk about kind of the differences between hunting in Indiana and Texas, which was a cool conversation to have with him, as
Oh, I
well
bet.
as well as why he came up with this rest and what he's doing with it and where he's going with it and what it's all about. So I hope you guys enjoy that interview next.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Brian Thurber, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here.
So going over, as we heard in the introduction from you are the owner of Trifecta Handgun Rest and an HHI member, fellow handgun hunter. Can you start by kind of telling me your hunting background and what was it that got you into hunting with a handgun specifically?
Well, that's interesting. We have to go way back to probably when I was 12 years old. My brother and I both had to have braces. So we would go to the orthodontist, and whoever got done first would go next door to the bookstore. And I remember going through the magazines because that's what I always went through. And I came across a Peterson's magazine, a hunting magazine, and there was a picture of a guy holding up like a mountain lion, and he was holding a python, a colt python with a scope on it. I thought, man, that's really cool. But I was too young, obviously, back then to handgun hunt. But I really got started archery hunting before that. So.
Yeah, interesting. Kind of our similar brothers in arms, I call the bow hunters.
Fast forwarding a little bit, my uncle bought a Ruger Super Red Hawk, and he let me shoot it, and he put it on sandbags, and that was a lot of fun. So that kind of got the juices going just a little bit more.
Was that a 44 mag?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when you shot that?
I'm gonna guess I was around 15 or 16, maybe somewhere in high school.
Nice. Did he start you out with full power loads?
I really don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember it, just you can be pretty accurate with it. I'm sure I was only shooting at like 15 or 20 yards,
Mm-hmm.
but I was accurate with it. I never thought about hunting with it at that point. And I guess fast forward to 2003 or so, I heard about the Encore and Contender. So I kind of caught that bug and started going through the Graybeard forums. I don't know if you guys or you remember
Yeah,
that at
absolutely.
all. But I spent a lot of time on there trying to figure out which caliber and barrel I wanted to get. So ended up with a 7mm 08 and still have that today. So that was my first handgun. And the first deer I took was in 2006.
That's cool. That I have a 708 barrel for my Encore as well. I love it. Absolutely. You came up hunting. Is hunting a tradition in your family?
No, it really isn't. My dad was not a hunter. My brother's definitely not a hunter. He's more into the computer thing. So I really don't have anybody that I can point to that really got me started. It was just something I was drawn to, I guess.
That's very interesting. I have a similar story. Nobody else in my family is really a hunter, and I just took a shining to it. There was a guy in our church who kind of took me under his wing, and I remember I've told the story in the podcast before, but I killed a squirrel in our backyard, and we lived in a ritzy neighborhood in Austin, Texas, and I killed a squirrel with my pellet gun, and he came over and taught me how to field dress it and cook it. And my mom was thinking, okay, but I ate it because I've always been fascinated by getting my own food. It's always been kind of the draw to me of, man, I can turn this stuff in nature into food.
Yeah, my first big game animal was a rabbit, so similar story. It was a pellet gun rabbit that my neighbor and I stalked and hunted. So
that's cool. That's cool. So tell me what the handgun hunting scene in Indiana is like. What's y'all's hunting out there?
Well, it's not super popular. I'm going to say less than 1% of people who firearm hunt probably hunt with a handgun.
Hmm.
But our landscape is kind of diverse. We have Kentucky, Ohio River bottom down there with the Ohio River, and then Ohio and Indiana and Illinois have similar type terrain, Midwest type terrain. So it's hilly down south and pretty much ag up north.
Hmm.
So it makes it, like a 10-acre woodlot up north where I live is kind of a normal place to hunt.
Oh.
There's bigger ones, and you can hunt deer on as little as 3 or 4 acres and be pretty successful at it. So
So it sounds
a
like
lot different from Texas.
yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it's pretty wooded. Is that true? I mean,
Well,
where you
we're
are?
where I'm at, we have wood lots more than woods.
Hmm.
So if it doesn't have a house on it, it's probably in agriculture if it's flat. And then there's where it's not flat, maybe a creek running through, there's going to be some woods there. So
What's the difference
so
between a wood lot and woods?
a wood lot's just a small piece of woods.
Ah, okay, I got you. I got you. That sounds a lot different than where I am.
Yeah. Well, you guys don't use tree stands down there, do you?
We do. So Texas is so big that and it's diverse, but we do use some tree stands. A lot of bow hunters use tree stands. It's not nearly as common in my neck of the woods to use a tree stand as it is to use a ground blind or even a tower blind, but it is done. It is done. It's definitely the minority of people hunt from a tree stand, though.
So do you have straight trees like a climber tree could go in, or is it all
No.
our ladder stands?
I mean, no, we do not have very many straight trees.
Yeah.
It depends on, again, the area you're in. Out east Texas, they have pretty straight trees, the piney woods area. Where I live, a lot of oaks, and the water is inconsistent, so they just grow, however they're going to grow. So you just have to kind of, sometimes it makes it easier for them to climb. And I've done it, and I've known a couple of people that done it. That sometimes just there's a good tree that you don't even have to put a stand in; you can just kind of sit in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, lots of really pretty oak trees where I live, and that's. But I would say so 99% of the hunting that's done where I live is a feeder and a ground blind.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Because we are
Yeah, we're not allowed to bait in Indiana, so.
right. A lot of I don't know what your deer population is like in Indiana, but we are so overrun with whitetail deer and now axis that if we didn't do that, we just we have enough deer to do that. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the stigma of Texas is, you get a sack full of corn and put it out and make a bait pile and then go hide somewhere and wait for something to show up.
Yeah, that there is kind of that does sound when you talk about it that way, it definitely does sound easy. And when I first started handgun hunting, my buddy and I decided that we were not going to do it that way and we were going to stalk through the woods, which I love doing. I love stalking. However, having had more experience in moving through my hunting career, it is not a gimme. There are there are places obviously where it is a gimme, but there are game patterns that need to be observed. And also the whole, sitting in a blind deal is being still for that long is not is a skill in itself. And I mean, I know same thing with the tree stand, but
Yeah, we use a lot of blinds in Indiana too. So,
Mhm.
but it's like I said, we're not allowed to bait, so you kind of have to find some natural food, or you can put a food plot out, which grows pretty good around here.
Yeah.
Not super common, I don't think, because we have so much agriculture that deer don't hit the food plots like you might get in some other states. But
Interesting. Well, I can tell you. So one of the reasons that I love having a blind and a feeder is the opportunity to introduce somebody to the sport. If you have a higher success rate, you take a lot of the pressure off of a first time hunter because they don't have to think about finding it as much as they do have to think about being ethical and humane in the way that they kill it. And that is kind of like a stepping stone. And also I'll say, I've obviously lived in this area my whole life, and deer will freak you out as far as, I know guys who just, especially South Texas, those guys that get a little too crazy about it sometimes. You will find a deer you see before the season, you're like, oh man, that guy keeps coming to the feeder, and then he will disappear and he will not come to the feeder all season. Or you'll sit there one morning and you'll see 5 deer, and then you'll sit there in the afternoon and you'll see 7 totally different deer.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's an interesting. It's not like shaking the feed bucket for cattle.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I love that, somebody that hasn't been out before, you can give them some high success. So
I will
that's
also,
really cool.
yeah. I will also echo though. It is much more rewarding when you are on your own 2 feet stalking through the woods and you come out successful.
Yeah. Well, I've been through Texas a few times, and,
Hmm.
and it seems like there's a lot of open water down there. There's a lot of cover, but I don't know how you would ever pattern an animal if you did not use some sort of bait.
It is very difficult, and the terrain down here is so rocky. I'm talking about the hill country where I am. So rocky, so many seasons of dry versus wet, so there's always dead stuff on the ground. It's very difficult to be quiet. And yeah, they never seem to do the same thing twice. And I think that's because there is no consistency in their food and water sources, because something that was wet yesterday may be dry tomorrow. And like for instance, this season was very heavy on the acorns. I've never seen so many acorns in my life, which is ironic because we were just coming out of we're still in the middle of a big drought. So I think that plays into the fact that it's kind of hard to pattern deer. Although that's part of the fun of it is trying to be the wily hunter, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think of Texas and acorns going together, but I guess
Yeah,
depends on where you're at.
that's true. That's true. Our acorns are the only thing that isn't bigger in Texas. We have really small acorns that are. I'm trying to think of something to compare them to. I mean, not even smaller than grapes. Tons and tons of them this year, and that actually kept deer away from the feeders. So there's
Yeah, they love acorns.
yeah. So there was
They'll eat acorns pretty much before anything. So
that was one of this season. I had a lot of friends who were saying, "Man, the deer aren't coming." Because I mean, even people who feed at their house just to have scenery, the deer just weren't coming because of the acorns. But
yeah.
no matter what I've found with hunting, no matter how you do it, unless it's just something that is totally canned, it's not ever a gimme.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So moving on to, you said you killed your first deer with that 708 Encore in 2006.
Yeah.
What was kind of your journey to discover that you wanted to create a rest for people to use in the field while handgun hunting?
Well, there's that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely true for me. If we fast forward to 2008, I was hunting in southern Indiana, and there's a Texas gas line that goes through be my uncle's property. So I had a blind sitting on one side, and it's maybe 70 or 80 yards across this thing, and a big buck shows up, and he stood right in front of 2 cedar trees. And I had some, I guess you'd call them tent pole stakes, like 3 feet long, and a little piece of rubber band in the middle, and I was using that as a rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I put I was nervous because he was a big buck, probably the biggest one, in 2 or 3 miles every direction. And I put the crosshairs on him, and I'm, on his back, on his belly, on his back, and I couldn't hold still enough. So I eventually shot, and I saw him bound off, and the way he bounded off, I was like, I don't know if I even hit him or not. But unfortunately, that day it was raining really hard, so I had to take up the trail right away. I did find a blood trail. After about 150 yards, it petered out, and he would have had to go across this big open field. So to keep the story short, about 2 hours later, I saw him coming back through, and he looked completely healthy. But I knew I had to do something different, because I could use those tent stakes when I wasn't nervous, and I was okay with them, but it wasn't supporting the back of the gun, just the fore end. So I had to do something different. I bought a bog pod tripod, and it had the little U-shaped top on it. And I tried that. That still wasn't effective enough for, what I thought I could do with that gun. It's an accurate gun, but I couldn't hold still well enough to kind of match up to it. So fast forward to 2010, and I was filming a kid's football game with a camera that was roughly the size of the Encore pistol, probably 12 to 15 inches long and about the same weight. And it was on a tripod on a fluid head, and I was just messing with it. I'm like, man, I can hold really still with this camera. maybe I'm onto something here. So I would go to work and I used all the Post-it notes just drawing things up. And I was trying to figure out a way I can hold the gun perfectly still by putting several points of contact on it and then be able to use this fluid head at the same time. So I knew several people that I could talk to as far as getting a prototype. Been involved in machining and manufacturing, paint coatings and things for quite a few years. So I got a prototype together, and that was really the start of it. And I just made it for myself back in 2010.
Let me ask you, I hunted for a long time. I still do sometimes with my red-legged devil bipod. Bogpod made the PSR for a while. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, absolutely.
Was that around when you were starting, or did you start after they had already discontinued that?
I started before that, and then I saw that one come out, and
But by then
then
you
they
had already had.
discontinued it.
But by then
Yeah,
you
I had my
I
first
gotcha.
one.
I gotcha. So, what was your first rest? How was your first rest different from the rests you make today?
Well, gosh, that's the first one was very, very expensive to make. I think I probably had about $300 into it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of the cushioned spool that I call the trigger guard guide wheel
Mm-hmm.
that sits on top of it today, it was just a roller bearing called a cam follower. It's just a bearing with like a bolt sticking out of it or some threads that you can attach to something.
Sure.
And my idea is kind of like make it something similar to an arrow rest on a bow where it wasn't cushioning or anything. It was just kind of, for the arrow to sit there, it'd be the same thing with the frame of the gun. So that was the idea for the first one. From 2011, I really started the business and incorporated it. So from 2011 to 2015 or 16, those were the real struggle years because nobody bought it. It was expensive to make, and I don't think people really understood it. And it worked fairly well for what it was, but the bad part about it, or the negative, is you couldn't really put it on unlevel terrain at all. You would have to adjust your tripod perfectly to make it level. So the one we have today, you get a little bit more wiggle room.
So you started your business in 2011. Is that correct?
January 1st,
Oh,
yes.
awesome. So been at it 11 years now. Good on you for that perseverance. As a small business entrepreneurial mindset guy myself, I look up to that. That's because that's what it takes, right? It just takes believing in what you're making and keeping chipping away at it.
Yeah, I knew it worked. It was just one of those things where how do I get it out there? And really the signature camo rest that we put out in 2016 was really when things took off because I changed the manufacturing techniques completely for that one. So the rest itself was very accurate, but was also very versatile and lightweight. You can fit it into a variety of situations.
And you've upgraded the signature camo rest to the ambush rest, correct?
Yeah, and that was partly intentional and partly necessity. The fluid head for the signature camo, they quit making. So I had a harder and harder time getting a hold of them. And then so I was like, well, maybe I ought to look for something different. And that was about when I started talking to you, maybe September, October last year. And I found a new fluid head that got really good reviews on Amazon and B&H Photo, and there was quite a few YouTube videos that really reviewed it well, so I bought one. Long story short, I really liked it. It looks nice, much better machining. The knobs on it, the knurling on them are real easy to use and to make adjustments with. So it was a blessing in disguise, I guess, to move over to the ambush handgun rest. And I think my favorite part of it is the handle. It's a bent handle and you can manipulate it and move it around any way you want. And you can take it off. The signature camo, you had to have the handle on there to use it. But this one, you could completely take it off if you really want to strip down and go lightweight.
That new ambush rest is also ambidextrous, correct?
It is. So you can order it in either left or right. You do have to order it that way because there's some things I have to do before I send it out. But it can be ordered either way, where the signature camo is just a right-handed rest.
Tell me a little bit about the hybrid hunter rest, because I have only had experience with the signature camo rest that you graciously donated to be a Handgun Hunters International giveaway. And so I've only seen pictures of the Hybrid Hunter. What was the idea and the purpose behind that one?
Sure. Well, the Hybrid Hunter I brought out just as kind of an experiment after the signature camo. And I wanted something that was going to be a little bit heavier. It's going to be something that you're not going to be running up and down the Rocky Mountains with, but maybe if you have a ground blind or a box blind or just have a short trek to your stand, but maybe you want to hunt with a long range firearm and just want something a little bit heavier and more stable. That's really where the Hybrid Hunter comes into play. I really love it. The ergonomics of it are really good, but I would not do it. I would not use that if I was going to use a monopod and get up in a tree stand or run up and down the hills. But, for like the Encore with a bottleneck cartridge or a bolt action type gun, it works really well.
How much do your rests weigh?
I don't have that on me at the moment. I'm just going to take a guess and say the ambush is probably about 3.2 pounds, and the Hybrid Hunter is going to be just a little over 5 pounds.
Okay.
And another nice thing about the Hybrid Hunter is you can take the handle off of that. There's actually two handles if you look at the picture.
Yeah, one for your
You can take both of those off. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to make it smaller and lighter, you can definitely do that.
So the Hybrid Hunter 2, you'd say, is more for a set up position for longer range guns, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
I would probably use it on a tripod more than anything.
Understood. Let me ask you this. You talking kind of tickled this question in my head. How did you reach handgun hunters? In that time that you said you were struggling and then finally things started going well and taking off, how did you reach handgun hunters? What do you think? Was there just people started doing it more often? And once you did start reaching handgun hunters, does that give you evidence to say how popular handgun hunting is kind of nationwide or, in your circle?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. A lot of my customers are really new to it, which I think is really cool. I just sold one today to somebody in California, of all places. And then about a week and a half ago, somebody in New York bought one. It's like two places you don't really think about handgun hunting so much, but there they go. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. The only other thing I was curious about is what methods were you using to reach people that might be interested in your rests?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So social media is kind of a big one, but I think just optimizing my website. I don't want to go too techie on anybody, but like search engine optimization is a thing. So people will see keywords and come to your website. So that's really been a big one. So just, I guess, I'm out there on Instagram and Facebook and have a YouTube channel also. So
that's good because it says that people are Googling something like, hunting rests, handgun hunting rests, or something like that, right? That there is an interest that is not something that you create by saying, hey, et cetera, come check this out. It is somebody's thinking, oh, wow, let me Google or put in my search engine, handgun rests.
Yeah. And it's actually pretty hard to advertise something like this because it's such a niche or niche product, however you say that word. And, we both know that you can't really advertise on social media platforms. They just, they don't like it. So
yeah, that's actually one of the
so
reasons.
It's hard to find a place to advertise. So I'm glad that you and I have struck something up with Handgun Hunters International. I just want to take a second to say, hey, thank you for doing that. By the way,
I appreciate.
I saw you were bringing that back up, and I was like, man, I don't know if that's going to work. Obviously it died for the first time for some reason, but you're doing so much and trying different things and things that probably weren't done before. And I wasn't around for the first time. I read some six gunner articles and things, but I wasn't a member the first time around. So I'm super stoked that you started it back up and you're expanding that.
I appreciate you saying that, Brian. I really do. Again, like your business, it's a journey, and there are some unique aspects to running this organization now that weren't true when it was first started in the 70s, specifically social media. But I guess that's what I do is I just keep trying new things and keep trying new things. And because I know handgun hunters are out there and they keep coming out of the woodwork, which is good. And I'm really glad to hear you say that because this is definitely a passion project for me.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I do have one bone to pick with you though.
Hit it.
So I was on your social media page and I saw that you released 5 of these podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious. I went over to Handgun Hunters International, clicked on the podcast button, and the 2 guys before me are Mark Hampton and Ernie Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Then you interview me. No.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
I probably should have been first. But this is like AC/DC and the Rolling Stones, and then I come in as the garage band, to close the show.
No, not at all. You're doing great work for our sport, and those guys know it.
Yeah, those guys are legends, though, man. They've done it all. So
they are, and I'm grateful that they would talk to me. But no, getting the word out about anybody who's contributing, anybody in the industry, which you are contributing to handgun hunting. No, I am dedicated to giving them a platform because I want. One of the things that we suffer from in the handgun hunting community is the fact that the industry is kind of, we become just kind of not, swept under the rug. They're not as concerned, which I get from a business point. You sell way more self-defense guns these days than hunting handguns. But if we can let them know with our one voice as Handgun Hunters International that we want them to bring back things and we want people to start businesses making things for handgun hunters, that's where I'm passionate.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell you something. I'm pretty stoked the past few years, with the handgun hunter competition and then out west and then in Ohio is the Adam Bender Memorial Shoot. So there's some things happening and I'm really glad that I'm going to be sponsoring both of those events. And obviously got a little bit more involved with Handgun Hunters International in the past 6 months.
Yeah. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support, and those 2 competitions are fantastic as well. Handgun Hunters competition, fantastic nonprofit organization. And Adam was a member before he passed away. And I'm really glad that they're keeping that memorial shoot going. So before we wrap this up, I want you to tell me where the future of Trifecta Handgun is. Where are you seeing this thing going? And if you can, any other ideas you have coming down the pike?
Well, I would like to just keep participating in these shoots and sponsor more things and just personally get out there as much as I can. I'm pretty busy with everything that I do, but I love teaching handgun hunting or shooting as much as people will listen to me. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not an expert. Nobody's ever came up to me with a piece of paper or certificate or anything that said, you're an expert now. So, but I just love tinkering and I love learning from everybody. So that's where I see myself going as far as products go. A lot of times they just come to me when I see something that needs changed with what we do now or something new. So I don't really have anything to offer to you on that front. But
well, I know we're on the heels of a really fresh offering, but keep that brain working, Brian. Well, before we close out, can you tell people where they can find you and follow you?
Absolutely. TrifectaHandgun.com is the website if you want to learn more about our handgun rest. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just do a search for Trifecta Handgun and you will find it.
That's great. I recommend everybody follow Brian Thurber, Trifecta Handgun. He is doing the Lord's work in bringing field rests for handgun hunters back to being a real thing. Brian, thank you so much for visiting with me today, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ryan. And also YouTube is another one.
Yes.
But thanks you so much for having me on today. I certainly appreciate that, and I was not expecting this. So really cool and really fun.
This podcast is produced by Handgun Hunters International. HHI is the only organization dedicated solely to supporting and growing the sport of handgun hunting. Membership gets you access to our great, well-moderated forum where friendly handgun hunters of all experience levels share stories and information from folks that have actual experience in our sport. We also host giveaways to our members of guns, gear, and ammo every month, and each prize is worth several times what membership costs. In addition to this podcast, we publish a free digital magazine, The Six Gunner, which is written exclusively by HHI members. If you are a handgun hunter or support handgun hunting in any way, you need to be a member of HHI. Join today at handgunhuntersinternational.com. Again, if you have any questions on how to get started in handgun hunting, please reach out to me at ryan@handgunhuntersinternational.com. If you think we deserve it, please leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to follow Handgun Hunters International on social media at Handgun Hunters INT. God bless and good hunting.